welcome back to my channel. Yeah, today is Thursday, and let's hear what the Critical Trigger's thoughts are today. But let's start off. Hello, my name is Daniel. I'll be your host, your guy in a wheelchair.
Guy in the chair.
He said it! He said it!
And for today, we're going to hear the Critical Trigger's thoughts on why Ant-Man 3 is trash, or whatever. Well, it might make you hate movies, but let's enjoy. So enjoy. It might take a while.
Let's talk for a moment about representation. No, not that kind of representation. I'm talking about individual examples that perfectly encapsulate the larger collective they're part of. For example, I think Armageddon's a pretty good representation of your average Michael Bay movie. A star-studded cast, lots of explosive, over-the-top action.
Alright, let's start singing. Enjoy. It's gonna take.
Let's talk for a moment about representation. No, not that kind of representation. I'm talking about individual examples that perfectly encapsulate the larger collective they're part of. For example, I think Armageddon's a pretty good representation of your average Michael Bay movie. A star-studded cast, lots of explosive, over-the-top action, lashings of patriotic heroism and earnestly grandiose posturing, and a plot that relies on the sheer willpower of the audience to hold it together. Or The Shining, which is pretty much representative of Stanley Kubrick movies as a whole. Lots of long, extended shots, awkward silences, and unnerving exchanges between characters, heavy subtextual meaning, slowly building tension and paranoia, and a gradual descent into madness and violence. And then there's Ant-Man 3, or Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania if you're a pedantic arsehole. A movie which basically sums up everything the MCU has become. A plot so entirely predictable and generic that it feels like it was written by an overworked AI, basically consisting of a series of tired and played out tropes that have been done a million times before. Lame attempts at quippy jokes and visual gags that are jarringly at odds with what's actually happening. Headache-inducing visuals that are so obnoxiously overdone you can barely even process what you're seeing. And an ending that effectively puts everything back exactly as it was before, so that there's absolutely no weight or consequence to anything that you just saw. In short, Ant-Man 3 is everything that most of us have come to despise about Marvel at this point. It's 2 hours of trite, bland, corporatized, predictable, pointless, soul-destroying nothingness. It's the absolute antithesis of artistic endeavor that has nothing interesting to say or do and exists for no other reason than because the studio had a release slot to fill. Watching this movie is like eating a Big Mac for the 500th time in your life. Just another iteration of the same formula that's exactly what you expect from start to finish, and leaves you feeling vaguely dirty and disappointed in yourself afterwards. Just like Tatiana after one of my special sessions. Anyway, fuck it, let's get the plot summary over with so we can be done with this shite. So the story... formulaic series of predictable events picks up sometime after the events of Endgame. Scott Lang is living the good life now, basking in the glow of fame and success after helping to save the world. He's well liked, respected, and dating a beautiful and intelligent woman. Yeah, she looks like she gets her hair cut in a vending machine, but whatever, I guess you can't have everything. Seriously though, the hair and wardrobe department on these films must really hate Evangeline Lilly for some reason, because the goal of every single movie seems to be to make her look as shit as possible. Anyway, whatever. So they pop round to Hank Pym's house for an awkward family lunch when Scott's teenage daughter Cassie reveals she's created a magical quantum bullshit device that can allow them to scan and map out the entire quantum realm. Because, you know, of course she has. Because this is Marvel, where every teenage girl is a scientific mega genius that creates Star Trek level technology in their bedroom in their spare time for fun. Fuck off, film. Honestly, it's like some Jakey from the East End of Glasgow claiming to have invented a functional time machine after drinking a pint of brake fluid. I just need 10 quid to make it stop being invisible, mate. Help me out. Oh yeah, and she's also a political activist. Because truly, there's nothing more likable than an asshole, opinionated teenager that's never lived a single moment in the real world in their entire life, berating a grown man who literally saved the universe, that he's got no reason to feel good about himself because there's still homeless people.
You serious?
Seriously, you live in San Francisco, love. Even Captain Marvel couldn't turn that shithole around.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Anyway, so she turns on the magical quantum bullshit device, but then Janet remembers that she's still a character in this movie and frantically shuts it down. But then it powers itself up again despite being disconnected from its power source, because I guess that's how machines work, and then they all get sucked into the quantum realm.
Shite. Oh, yes. That's shite.
Yup, that's the premise for this movie. Just shove them into the situation they need to be in as quickly as possible and don't ask questions. Also, I love how the fantastical, mind-bending quantum realm might as well just be an alien planet, considering it's got breathable air, gravity that's comparable to our own, a functioning ecosystem, recognizable civilizations and humanoid life forms, and even bars. Do they have like cable TV as well? Anyway, the gist here is that when Janet was stranded in the quantum realm for like 30 years, she hooked up with a human scientist who just so happened to crash land in her immediate vicinity and save her life. Wow, that was lucky. Together they worked to repair his ship so they could return to the real world, but because it's a magical bullshit plot device ship, the moment it reactivated, Janet was able to sense his thoughts and realized that he was actually Kang the Conqueror.
Well, that's definitely shite.
Wow, what a stroke of luck. I mean, if that ship didn't have such a wildly specific function with absolutely no practical value, then none of this stuff would even be happening. So anyway, she blew up the engine core with her magical bullshit shrinking devices and got the hell out of there, while Kang became a kind of dictator who rules over the entire quantum universe. And of course, Janet decided never to mention any of this extremely relevant and important information to anyone so that the rest of the plot could happen. The gist now is that Kang wants the engine core back so that he can repair his ship and return to the real world and conquer it. So he kidnaps Scott and Cassie and forces them to help him. And because Scott doesn't want to see his daughter get crushed to death in front of his eyes, he does. So Kang gets the core back and takes Janet along with him so that he can gloat to her or whatever, and leaves everyone else to die without actually confirming their deaths, because the writers are absolute fucking hacks that have never seen Austin Powers before.
No. I'm going to leave them alone and not actually witness them dying. I'm just going to assume it all went to plan. What?
Then they get rescued by Hank's aunts that have built their own super advanced civilization that even Kang didn't seem to be aware of, and there's a big climactic CGI battle to stop a sky portal from opening, and lots of stuff explodes, and Cassie's able to persuade Kang's right-hand man to betray him by calling him a dick, and then Kang dies and everything goes back to normal. What a pile of absolute shite. Honestly, when I think about what this movie is, what it's trying to be, and what the thought process behind it was, I realise that it's nothing more than a laundry list of every tired Marvel movie trope that we've seen over the past 10 years. I mean, say what you want about the first Ant-Man, but you at least got the impression that it was trying to do something a bit more creative and different. It was a heist movie. It was low level and personal. It actually had a bit of creative energy and imagination behind it. This film just feels so utterly flat and devoid of soul and personality that it was like it was designed in some corporate boardroom by committee. Of course, the film has to bombard you with such insane visuals that it completely overwhelms your brain and leaves you numb. Of course, the fate of the entire universe has to be at stake, because God forbid you'd give us a small group of characters that we actually care about instead. Of course, the finale has to come down to a pair of generic CGI armies blasting away at each other against a CGI backdrop with no real indication of which side is winning or losing. Of course, every single dramatic moment has to be undercut by gratingly inappropriate humour, because if people aren't laughing, they're not enjoying themselves. Of course, every single female character has to be ferociously intelligent, successful, physically tough, resourceful, brilliant at fighting, and able to magically figure out things that they shouldn't possibly know. Of course it does, because it's a Marvel movie, and Marvel movies are literally just the same formula repeated again and again, only with slightly different variables. The cast is bloated way beyond the requirements of the actual storyline. The only people that are vaguely relevant are Scott, Cassie, and Janet, which kind of makes me wonder why the others were even involved. Like, why even call it Ant-Man and the Wasp if you're not going to give the Wasp anything to do? Michael Douglas spends most of the movie standing around with the kind of shell-shocked expression that just tells you he's wondering what the fuck happened to his career, while Evangeline Lilly looks confused and pissed off most of the time. I mean, I can't say I blame her with that shitty haircut. Cassie went from a cute, likeable little kid in the first movie to an obnoxious, self-righteous, sarcastic, abrasive know-it-all, played by an actress in her mid-20s for some reason, and I can't help wondering, who the fuck is this character even supposed to appeal to? I mean, do women look up to arrogant arseholes like that and think, yeah, I want to be like that? Oh yeah, and then there's MODOK. Want to see a giant CGI head that looks like a worse version of the Games Master floating around, getting owned by basically everyone? Well, feast your eyes, ladies and gentlemen, because this image pretty much sums up the MCU now. You know, I'm led to believe that the comic book version of MODOK is actually a pretty sinister, terrifying character, massively powerful, sadistic, and destructive. That would have been a cool thing to work into Ant-Man 3. This, however, is not. And then there's the stuff that's just fucking inexplicable, like Bill Murray showing up for a 5-minute cameo that honestly feels like it was worked in at the last minute because Bill Murray showed up on set that day and decided he wanted to be in the movie. It adds absolutely nothing, it does nothing except waste time, and it's about as funny as an episode of Velma. One of the few bright spots of this absolute shit show is Jonathan Majors as Kang. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's no Thanos, but he's got at least a tiny bit of gravitas this time around. Mostly because he speaks with big, dramatic pauses. Really though, like most of the rest of the cast, he's far too good for the bottom of the barrel shite like this. I can only hope that Creed 3 gives him a better chance to stretch his acting muscles, because I think he's destined for much better things than this. Ultimately, the Marvel Cinematic Universe feels like some old rock band playing their greatest hits at gig after gig. They're basically on autopilot now. Nobody's hearts are really in it anymore. They all know the routine off by heart and what the audience expects, and it's really just a case of getting through the set so they can move on to the next gig forever. And I have to admit, part of me still held a tiny flame of hope that they might have recognised where the franchise was going wrong after the train wreck of Phase 4, that they might vary things up now and then, try new things, different ideas, maybe break from the old, well-worn Marvel formula once in a while. Especially since this movie is supposed to kick off Phase 5 with a bang. Instead, it's just the same crap regurgitated once more, and if the box office underperformance is anything to go by, Phase 5 isn't going to start with a bang, but with a pathetic whimper. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
I hope y'all enjoyed the Crooked Drinker's thoughts on Ant-Man. Even though I kind of enjoyed it, but that's either way. Not everybody did, and that's okay. But if you like it, don't forget, I can snap, but I try and give it a thumbs up. Comment down below, and then finally subscribe for more. And the notification bell and be notified every time I post a new video. And share. Bye.